Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm so excited to paint with you today. We're going to be doing another page in our watercolor journal series, but today is going to be a little different in that we're doing a themed couple of pages. So 'tis the season right now where I can see in terms of my older videos what is getting played, and all of the Christmas, winter, holiday videos are coming back up to the top. So I think a lot of you are getting prepared for the Christmas holiday season, and you are making things like cards as well as gift tags and things like that. So I have a video that is very popular that kind of bounces back each year, where I did a series of holiday gift tags. So I'm going to do another version of that where I might revisit some of the old gift tags that I already did with a slightly new style and introduce new ideas for those as well. So your watercolor journal book is a great place to practice this if you want to start creating these things, to create some designs and come up with some different ideas, and then take it from there onto the card or the gift tag themselves. So go check out some of the older videos if you want more inspiration ideas, but we're going to start a new one today. All right, so I don't know if you've seen that I've divided my journal into lots of different little squares here. If you can see that, it's light. I did it in pencil. I'm using a 6x9 Bao watercolor journal. You can get a link to all of my supplies and materials in the description of this video. So go check that out if you're looking for specific things that I'm using. So this is 140-pound cold press paper, 100% cotton. And if I was doing it outside of my journal, actually making the gift tags themselves, I would probably use very similar paper. 140-pound cold press, 100% cotton, but you can use whatever you have. These are going to be low water and painting, so it shouldn't be too hard on the paper itself. It shouldn't be too wet and make it very crinkly and things like that. I'm also using my Core watercolor palette, QOR by Golden. This is my 24 color set that I use. I also have a Core mini set with just 12 colors that I love. But yes, you can find those in the description as well. And I have a pencil, I have some water. The brushes I use right now for these videos are Princeton Velvet Touch and Princeton Select. Velvet Touch is the red, Select is the blue. I also have other different brush sizes, brands, but use whatever works for you. I pretty much exclusively only use round brushes. Okay, so let's get into it. We are going to start over here on the left and work our way to the right. I always start on the right and work my way left, and then I end up putting my hand in wet paint. I don't know why, but so I'm going to force myself to start on the left here in the margin. All right, so I have this little square. These are 3x3. Whatever size works for you, but this is a nice size, big enough that I can get some painting done in here, but small enough that it's not like overwhelming as a gift tag. All right, so the first one we're actually going to do a fun little ribbon. I'm going to draw it out first, and then we're going to paint it. So I'm going to start with I'm going to move it over just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to start with just a square in the middle. And you could even make it a little angled. It could be more like a trapezoid. And then on the top up here, I'm going to make a loop over here and a loop over here, like little bunny ears. Okay. And then from the edge of that bunny ear, I'm going to come all the way down and make this nice, big, fluffy bow. And bows, you can give them attitude by like making the edges not straight and perfect, drawing in some like not crinkles but indents and folds into them, and we'll add some of that detail with paint. So there we have a nice bow, but let's give it also some tails. So we're going to make nice thick tails down below here. So right out from the center, they kind of go right up to the edge of the loops. And then with this, I'm going to have it as if it's like wrapped around a gift. So it's going to, and I'm going to accentuate, I'm going to have it be skinnier here as if it's gathered together. And then same thing down below, we're going to go out to the bottom. So this one is like as if it's wrapped around it, and we're going to paint it like right around it. I thought that was kind of a cool little effect. And then for your to and from, we can put so I put it off to the right side a little bit. You could put it off to the left. You could wrap it around the bottom, however you want to do it. I'm writing in pencil to and from. You could put them next to each other, however you prefer. Maybe you have a stamp with these on it as well, but there's our first little bow. So let's get painting our bow. We have so many to paint here. This is going to be a long video. Maybe I'll do it in sections. I'll do a couple and then we'll do a break and then we'll do a part 2. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to start with my Alizarin Crimson. I already pre-wet these a little bit so they would be ready to go for you guys. I'm going to water it down. And you know, I'm even going to add in, I'm going to pick up a little bit of this yellow I have here. So this is Diarylide yellow, but a gamboge yellow, any kind of warm yellow would work great. And I'm actually going to paint my ribbon yellow at first. I'm not going to paint the loops at the top. Those are going to be dark. So I'm just going to give it a little yellow underlay. And then when I paint in my red, and anywhere that I leave like kind of highlighted will have a bit of an orangey yellow highlight. Now I'm going to come in with my Alizarin Crimson, and the areas that I'm going to focus on so when I get closer to the center in my second layer, those are going to be the darker areas. And you can get as detailed as you want with these, but again, they're gift tags, so you don't want them to be hyper time consuming. All right, so I'm going to let that dry, and then we are going to put on another layer. So if you wanted to just go full bore, paint a nice bright layer, one and done, you can. I'm going to give these a little bit of layering and a little bit of shadowing. But I do have to let it dry. I know I said I was going to, but then I'm going back in wet on wet with a little bit of extra color towards the middle. And then I'm going to let it dry and we'll put on another layer. And don't worry, we will get those loops up top. We're going to paint those in with a darker Payne's gray color. All right, so that is the first layer of our little ribbon. Let that dry and we'll move on to our second one. We'll draw out our second one while that one dries. So for the second one, we'll stick with the same similar colors. I'm going to do the Jingle Bell again. I love this Jingle Bell. I did it in the one before. If you want to use some kind of round object, tape rolls are great to kind of get you started. This is too small for me. I'm going to get my kneaded eraser. I'm going to go on the outside of the tape roll. Make it big. So this is like the big Jingle Bell from like the Polar Express, like that very popular book and movie. So we're just going to cut our Jingle Bell in half with this little rim here. So now you have a top and a bottom. And from the bottom, I'm going to put in cutouts. So I'm going to do one like right. So it's like a circle right here. And then I'm going to do like half of one over here. So you're not going to see quite the whole thing. And another one over there. There we go. So we have the bottom of our Jingle Bell. I probably could have put this up a little higher, but it's okay. And then we're going to put a little cap on the top with some string. And if you wanted on something like this, like you could put your to and from maybe right inside the Jingle Bell, like right here, and we'll paint right over it. That's fun. I haven't done that before, putting the message inside the painting itself. So this one, we're also going to use Alizarin Crimson. And basically, I'm going to put on a first layer. I'm going to paint in our little... And just remember that Jingle Bells are made of metal, generally. And they're going to have some highlights and some shadows. I'm going to paint the edge of this, but I'm going to leave some spots that are going to be lighter and make some spots that are going to be darker. Again, we're going to do this in at least 2 layers. Don't worry, we'll come back and do the to and from, even though we've already kind of laid them out in there, but we'll put them in marker or ink so that way they stand out a little bit more. All right, in the bottom, I'm just gonna go, I think the last time I didn't paint, I left the cutouts where like the sound comes from. I didn't paint over them. I'm going to paint over them in red because I'm going to then paint over them in Payne's gray anyway. I'm just not going to worry about like going around each little piece. I do like leaving like little bits of white poking out. And you'll see the difference between, I think you'll be able to see the difference between this alizarin crimson and this, because I put the underlay of yellow on it. It's just going to make it a different quality of red. And the highlights will be they'll be white and cool in this one. And in this one, they're going to be a little bit warmer. There we go. So we have some nice little highlights on a few spots. We'll come in and we'll make some more shadows that will pop the highlights out even more. And we'll paint in those cutouts down there in a dark color. So I'm just going to put a little yellow up here at the top. I had my warm yellow, my Diarylide yellow. Oops, I let it get into my red. But just for that little golden cap on the top of ornaments sometimes. And you can take a little Payne's gray. You can leave this in pencil or ink, or you can paint it in. I'm just going to use the very tip of my brush to paint in the little strings that are kind of at the top of this. So again, we have to let this dry for the cutouts to paint those in and to do our extra layers. So we're going to jump back to our ribbon here, which is now fully dry. So again, I'm jumping back to just alizarin crimson. And now we're going to put another layer on. So I want the center to be the darkest. So I'm going to start with some heavy alizarin crimson paint in the center. I'm going to rinse off my brush and I'm going to come to the edge of that. And just grade that out. So basically doing a gradient. Same thing with my little interior, or my tails here at the bottom. And even where this ribbon kind of gathers to the center. And we're going to do even darker color with a little Payne's gray mixed in. Now this part, I want the edges to kind of be darker, but I want it to have like a highlight in the middle where that center pops out. I'm just going along the edges. I don't really have any extra paint on my brush. I'm just using what's down and kind of smoothing it out. And now I'm going to take a little alizarin crimson with a little Payne's gray. That was a lot of Payne's gray, but we'll add a little more. And really just drop that in around the centers here. Okay, looks super dramatic right now. I'm going to come back in with my brush. It is going to lighten as it dries. And I'm just helping with my brush kind of move it around. Either pushing it back in or pulling it out a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. And I'm going to take my Payne's gray. You should probably let most of that dry. I'm going to be a little daring and come in here in the top of my bow. I'm leaving like a tiny little white border. All right, let's let this dry and then we'll add in a few more details at the very end, right in the center with our darkest color. But that looks great. Looks very three-dimensional, looks like a lot of fun. Yeah, so let's move on. But you can definitely see how it has a different kind of quality to it than the standard just alizarin crimson with a little bit of those yellow highlights in there. But you don't have to do that, but just a little something extra. All right, same thing. I have this Payne's gray and alizarin crimson already mixed up. This very dark maroony red. I'm going to use that for putting in another layer of more shadowy areas. I'm going to kind of focus around this side, let the highlights be on that side. Go along the whole bottom of this little rim here. Then I'm just taking a clean, slightly damp brush to move it around, grade it out, blend it out. A little darker right under there. And then lastly, we're going to do the little cutouts down here. So this one is very dry over here. I didn't add any more paint over on this side, so I'm going to start with this one. If you need to go with a smaller brush, you definitely can. But just paint that in. This one is mostly dry. That one in. This one is still a little damp, but I'm going to go for it. All right, so our cutouts are done. They're going to dry a little lighter, which I think will be good. We want them to be a little more gray versus, I think, flat black. But Payne's gray always dries a little bit lighter. All right, so there is our Jingle Bell and our ribbon. Oh, I said I was going to do just a tiny bit, which I'm going to do, just outline kind of this center area with just a little Payne's gray. There we go. Let them dry. Lovely, fantastic. Okay, so let's move on to our next square. I'm going to swap my paper towel over here. And let's see, what are we going to do next? I made a list for myself over here of different ones that we wanted to do. Let's do some greenery and berries now. So we'll get some different colors going on over here. So there's holly berries, and I think I'm just going to do like a spray from the corner of, and we're going to keep it loose, but I think I'm just going to draw out a little like spray this way that's going to have pine, and it's also going to have some holly. We'll put a few of those in there, and maybe eucalyptus, and then berries. So let me just draw in, I'm not going to draw in everything. This is going to be much more loose, I think, but I'm going to draw in some berries. So just kind of spreading them out in bunches, trying not to make them all the same. So some single ones on their own, some clumps of 3s and 5s and 2s. There we go. And then this one will be tricky for, this can be a 2 up top. And maybe a from down here. To leave a little space for you to actually write the name in there. Which that's why we can do this on our sketchbooks, and we kind of figure all this out, and then you can just copy it exactly, or close to exactly. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to lay down some yellow in our berries. In all of them, and then we will bring in the red in a moment. So greenery. let's get out some sap green. So for this, and also I'm going to get some brown. So I have some nice brown here. This is a raw umber, which is a nice, cool, kind of neutrally brown. All right, so I'm going to put in, and actually I'm going to use my rigger. So I have a Prince & Select. This is a script liner or rigger brush. I'm going to get it wet, and I'm going to soak up some paint in it. And I am just going to kind of draw my base here for my berries. And we're going to paint over a lot of this, but there we go. And then I'm going to take my sap green. So this is a size 6. I actually have a size 4 I think I'm going to use. So I have a size 4. You could use your rigger or your script liner for this, but I think I'm just going to use my size 4 and swish, 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 swish. Make some pine. So you can see I am crossing that center line. I am not beholden to it. I don't make it perfectly. If you do a center line, don't make sure you actually cross it, make the paints mix and mingle a little bit. Otherwise, it's not going to look very natural. So I'm just picking a few spots to do pine out the edges. And if you want your green to be more of a blue green, you can add a little phthalo blue to it. I think it's this lovely, beautiful kind of blue-green color. So you can mix and mingle too, just sap green and this darker blue-green color. I'm going to put in a holly leaf over here. Sometimes less is more. I'm actually rinsing my brush off and taking paint off to finish painting this holly leaf, where a lot of people will just keep adding and adding and adding more paint. So I'm trying to get different values by having lighter areas and darker areas, but that doesn't always mean adding more dark paint all the time. Sometimes it means adding less or pulling color off, adding more water. And do another one down here. I'm just going to kind of freehand this one. I went around my berries there, so this looks like it's kind of falling behind. All right, so now we have a lot of greenery kind of set up. We can always add more, but let's go back into our red berries. Pick up some of that alizarin crimson. I'm actually going to water it down quite a bit. And bring it over top of these. Now, the berries should be a little shiny. They should have little pockets of more yellow and more red. So you want them to have dimension. You don't want them to just be all flat red. Which can be hard when it's this tiny little space. You really have to use control. So you can paint just half or a little bit of it and then come back and add more if you feel like you need to add more. But once you've gone too dark, you can't go back. So I'm going to go a little darker on some of them, but I'm going to let them dry first. And I have this little kind of mistake down here. So I'm just going to add some more berries down at the bottom. So I'm just touching a little extra color in here. Sorry for the sound effects. All right, and we will connect these folks down here in just a minute. Get them all connected up. So now you can add even more greenery in if you want to. Letting the red dry, mine is not very dry. You could add in, so going really blue-green and lighter. We could even do some eucalyptus type branches, which are just these kind of blobs, like down a reedy, especially in this very tiny space. So let's just add in. I'm actually overlapping and not being too finicky. So this is very busy. This has got a lot going on. Let's take some brown and let's connect some of these things. Take our eucalyptus spray. There we go. There we go. So we have some greenery and berries. Lots going on there. I don't know if I love that one, but it's an idea. It's some place to start. And now I can take all of these elements and kind of fix them and mold them into something maybe more controlled, but it can certainly be a lot of fun and add a lot of color to one of your gifts. All right, so I am going to take a little pause break here, let everything dry up above, and then we're going to start with 3 more, but we're already 30 minutes into this video. So I think I'm going to do 3 more, and then we'll do another page on another day for another long and fun video. All right, we're back and everything is dry, and I am going to jump into these other 3, but don't forget we have to go back in with, so I use Micron pens a lot. That's just the brand, but it is basically just an archival ink pen, ink pen that has like a very small tip on it. They come in various sizes, but I'm going to go ahead and write in my to and from more dark on here. And then I was going to mention that you can also use your pens and ink to add more details. So if you wanted to come into this ribbon with some ink, kind of like we did with the pencil in the beginning, and add some folds and details, you definitely can. And some sketchiness or outlines to the edges. I would encourage you to be careful about just outlining the full thing, unless that really is the look you're going for. But using the ink to add some texture and some details can be a lot of fun. And then of course you can come in with your ink to make permanent your where you drew in your to and from, and to add the names later on. So even for this one, we could give this a little accent of ink below there, or on the edges if you wanted to. It just gives it another kind of layer of texture and detail. I will caution you that on watercolor paper, it is textured, especially if you're using cold press. If you're using hot press, not as much, but it can be rough on pens. You're not going to get perfect smooth lines, so just be wary of that. But I actually love that look. So again, something you can add, but don't have to. And even on here, even on something like this, you could add open-ended things. Like I could just draw open designs over top that are just ink. And it just adds something different or new to it. You can outline your berries. You can outline some of them. You can leave just open berries in some areas. So that is just another tip or trick to add some more texture or interest to some of your pieces. These are micron pens, and you can find these pretty much in any art store as well as online if you check out the link in the description. All right, so let's move on to our next one. We're going to do a super simple snowman because I want to keep these a little bit shorter. Snowman, we're just going to do the top part, so the head of the snowman, kind of poking up, looking at us. So I am just going to do a nice, and you can use a traceable if you need to, but like a nice little round head here. Okay, and then he's gonna have the quintessential carrot nose, 2 eyes. Depending on the shape and the size and how far you put the eyes apart can really like change the overall mood and look and feel of our snowman. And then we're just going to do a little half side smile there. All right, so now on the top of our snowman's head, we are going to put a top hat. You can do lots of different types of hats, but we're going to do just plain old top hat. And actually the brim of this I'm going to make a little bit wider. All right, and then I have no idea where you're putting your to and from on this. You could do it in white pen on the top hat. Oh, that might be fun. So you could rearrange this so that way you make more space in here, but I'm going to bring in, I think, a silver pen at the end and write on the black top hat. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so snowman, very simple. We've got all of the basic pieces in there. They're white, so we're just going to actually use gray, Payne's gray, and I'm going to lighten it up a lot with a lot of water. And then I'm going to pick a side. So I'm going to put this side in shadow. And you can lighten up your pencil lines, but I'm going to leave mine on there. And I am going to put shadow under the nose and on the side of the face. And I'm just going to blend it out. Now there was a lot of pencil lines inside the top hat there, but I'm just going to paint over it all in black or Payne's gray. So a little shadow under here, but I'm going to leave this side almost completely white. Just blend it out until it's white, white, white. So we just have a nice little gradient shadow. I'm going to add maybe a little bit darker right here while it's wet on wet. And now I'm going to come in, I'm going to let all that dry, and we'll put on the facial features in a moment. I'm going to come in and do my top hat. Now this edge right here is still a little damp, so I'm going to be careful. And you can make it a little lighter on one side than the other. So we're going to go from this side. And since we've already kind of communicated that there's light coming from this way, we will go a little lighter on the other side. But remember, if I'm putting white writing inside this hat, for me, I do need it to be pretty dark. Sometimes I like to put Santa hats or just plain winter hats on my snowmen. There we go. And then if you want to add some embellishment to your hat, you definitely can. You can do that beforehand and paint around it. I'm just going to add a little like greenery or something kind of poking out on the one side. This side of the brim is much longer than the other, so we can fix that. Make you a little longer on this side so you kind of match. All right, so again, we're going to let that dry. I'll add in a little embellishment of some kind. If you wanted to put like a ribbon or something halfway through, like a red ribbon, you could do that. Can't do it now because you can't paint red over black, but it won't really work out for you. All right, so orange, we're going to use just a combination of that yellow that we were using before, the Diarylide yellow, and a little Alizarin crimson. We'll do the trick. Get us a nice little coppery orange. Make it lighter on top. And a little darker on the bottom. Whoops, a little too much. There we go. And then I did put it in before, but if you want to re-accent this shadow under the carrot's nose, you can. Ooh, you see I got up into the top hat there and brought down some Payne's Gray. Good thing it's all Payne's Gray. There we go. All right, so we're going to let all of that dry, put a little embellishment on the hat, and then this part is dry. I did put them in pencil, the eyes and the mouth and the little eyebrows there, but you can go back in. You can do it in ink. I'm going to do it in paint. Some people prefer this part to do it in ink because they just feel like they have a little more control. Don't mind this eyebrow that I messed up. It's just too wet there still. So we're going to be patient and we're going to come back and do that after this has dried. All right, and let's put in, we'll wait to do the mouth. Let's put in a little, just a little berry embellishment. We're going to do just two little dark red berries up here, maybe three. There we go. And then take some green. Just do like a little spray of green. So he has a little something on his hat. All right. Let's let it all dry. I'm even going to put another shadow underneath my carrot nose there. There we go. Just really helps it make it a little more three-dimensional. So there's my little snowman head popping up to say, here's your present. And we'll get in there with that, the white gel pen, or if you have a silver pen or something like that, we can put it right on the hat. Okay. Moving on. what are we going to do next? I think we'll do just some simple baubles. So some ornaments. Let me clean out my palette, and I'm going to set up with some new colors, and we'll get started on that. All right, let's do some of those baubles. Now, if you want to just paint them, you can, but if you want to draw them in. So these are like those retro, like the ornaments that used to be like these glass ornaments that used to be on my grandma's tree. Maybe you still use these. They're quite beautiful. So shapes like this, like that. And we'll do, I think I'll do just one round one. I'm going to overlap them a little bit. Or very close to overlapping. And then one, do I want it to be hanging down here? Yeah. I'm going to do one like long. I feel like I would have an easier time doing these if I just painted them, like getting the shapes more symmetrical. I feel like I can paint more symmetrical than I can draw. Okay, so there's 3 little baubles. I'm going to use this beautiful phthalo blue for one of them. So we're just going to paint them solid colors, and then I'm going to go in and add some details with some darker colors. So we're just going to paint in a nice light wash. We're going to leave some spots a little darker and a little lighter. Because again, these are glass. They have a lot of reflection in them. We don't want them to be perfectly flat. All right, that I'm going to do a green, I think, but I'm going to add a little blue to it. I don't want it to be that green. Do this one in a green. And maybe the last one in a yellow or gold. I know that's not very like traditional Christmassy, but I feel like it's very retro Christmassy. Okay, and then, yeah, do we want to do a gold? So I have, do I want to do this? No, that's too. So I have a Quin gold in here. That is a very orangey gold, but I'm going to put it in dark. But then as you blend it out, it becomes much more yellow. So Quinacridone gold, sorry, is the actual name of the paint color. But then we get these nice yellow tones as we like add water and blend it out. So it's kind of a balance between orangey gold and this bright, vibrant yellow. And I'm actually going to use that, I think, for the tops of all of these ornaments, the little gold piece. And then let's take our ink. I'm going to draw my strings for these. I'm going to let them dry, and then I'm going to add on some accents and just darker versions of the colors I think that are already there, just to make them a little bit more fun. Let's see, is this one dry? So I'm going to take this darker blue. We're going to find out if it's dry enough. Yeah. And I am just going to put on There we go. Some little details or designs. And for my green one, that green one definitely isn't dry yet. I'm going to switch. So if you have a dryer, you can always use that as well. So I have this little, or a blow dryer or a heat tool. This is just a heat tool. I'm going to give it a little zap. There, that's all that needed, really. It was very close. And just remember, if you're putting something like a design, like a line like this on a rounded object, it's going to follow the rounded object. So it shouldn't be straight across. It should have a bow to it. And then I'm going to do a line of dots, but again, they're also going to follow like a rounded. And we'll do just a couple more down here. There we go. And then what do we say? Do we leave the yellow one just yellow? I think so. We'll leave it just like that. We'll add our to and from down below. Now, if you do gift tags, one neat idea that I used and that I still have them, I made some more intricately painted tags that took more time, but I planned on them being reusable. So after they were really just for my immediate family, like my children and my husband. And after they got their gift, I took the gift tag back and we'll save it, and it becomes like their gift tag. Like they're always going to be the Christmas tree and snowman, or whatever you have painted on them. So that can be a fun idea too if you want to put a little more time and energy into them and not make them so simple. Just make them reusable. Okay, even these simple ones can be reusable too, so keep that in mind. Okay, what are we going to do for our last square? I think I'm going to do just a candle, like a tall candle. Try to keep it really simple with a bunch of like greenery and berries, like right here. Boop, boop, boop. Like greenery spray. I'm going to make it, let's see, maybe a little melty candle. So we'll give it a little tilt to the top with some wax down the side. All right, I'm going to lighten this up a little bit because my candle is going to be white. So this one, again, keep it real simple. Let's stick with this yellow, or this Quinacridone gold, or you could use the yellow, the warm yellow. Either one will work. I'm going to start with my flame. Right at the top. And you could put a little darker color in the center just to give it a little dimension. So flame right on top. Now the candle itself, I have a little, let's see, let's clean out the spacing here. If you want it to be a white candle, do we want it to be a white candle? I think I've done a white candle before in a video. Let's do like a red candle. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a red candle. Why not? So I am going to make sure there are a couple different values of red in here. So I'm going to go really light, kind of up here where the wax is melting. And then almost make this like on the verge of getting to be like white. So that's the top. And then underneath that waxy part, and I guess if our candle is red, I'm thinking I don't even need the red berries to like accent it. I'm just gonna put greenery in front of it. Take a little bit more, put a little bit darker red around the rim up top there. All right, we're gonna let that dry. Let's go in and put in our flame, I'm gonna put a little bit more Quinacridone gold, just a darker color right in the middle. Oh my gosh, I like picked up like a chunk of paint there. There we go. And we can start building on our greenery, I think, like around the sides and the back. You can just stick with pine. You could do specific types of leaves if you want to. I'm just going to do sprays, really simple sprays of pine. I'm going to start light. I will paint some in front in like a nice dark green. And again, you could use your rigger or your liner brush. Could use different greens. And I do recommend like layering, like lighter, darker, darker. I can go in front now. I think my red is dry enough. And just basically you're creating this little wreath of greenery that the candle is sitting in that you would see like on a mantle. And just keep adding and adding. This can get, I think, for beginners, when it doesn't happen like in the first layer, or the first few strokes, I think it can get frustrating for new folks. Like, oh, I just want to cover up that section. I want to get it done. And they end up putting in like a really big blob of paint. Keep layering in small little textured bits. And it will kind of all come together, but it will give you much more sense of dimension and texture if you don't take the shortcut out. And you can definitely turn your page if you need to. There we go. And I am going to now take some of this. Remember when we used that dark alizarin crimson with the Payne's gray over here? I'm going to take a little bit of this on my rigger. And I'm just going to go along the edge of this waxy area to make a shadow. And then in my waxy drip area is like super waxy. It's like a large clump of it, but I'm going to take just some Payne's Gray and go in here. And then right in this little divot here where the wick is. There we go. There we go. All right, there is our candle in our little greenery. And again, we can write our 2 up top, up here. And our from. There we go. All right, there are 6 ideas, and in another video, I'm going to do another 6 on the other side. I have on my list, let's see, we have Christmas tree. I also have a deer with lights, presents, Santa hats. I think there's a polar bear in there, maybe a fox. I'm not sure. So we'll add a whole bunch of other little illustrations that can be used for holiday, Christmas tags. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you for our next page very soon. Take care, y'all. Happy painting.